I am Elis Nurpitasari and I am the first presenter from the 9 group. So in this occasion, I would like to present about discourse, language comprehension, coherence, and comprehension. So the first material about discourse. There are some definition of discourse. The first one from Crystal 1993 state that discourse is a continuous series of language, especially spoken, that is wider than the sentences. And the second one from Pangabean defined that discourse is a unit of language on the level of sentences used to communicate in a social context. Unit the language can be in the form of series, sentences, or utterances. So discourse can be in oral or written form and can be transactional or interactional. Based on the generic structure and features of language, the discourse that are often what we find can be grouped into 3 groups of discourse. Namely, the first is narrative discourse group, the second one is descriptive discourse group, and the third one is argumentative discourse group. So in narrative discourse group can be divided into several genres such as narrative, recount, anecdote, spoof, and news item. So the second one is descriptive discourse group. Is divided into several genres such as descriptive, report text, procedure, and explanation text. So and the last one, argumentative discourse group, is divided into several genres as analytical exposition, hortatory exposition, discussion, and argumentative. So the next material about language comprehension. There are 2 definitions of language comprehension from the expert. The first from Darjo Wijoyo 2005 state that language comprehension is how we understand the meaning of words, phrases, clauses, sentences, or discourse we listen. And another definition from Indah and Abdurrahman 2008 defined that language comprehension is human ability to analyze speech and identify them as a word or sentence and capture the ideas contained in the sentence. Language comprehension involves several components. Those are, the first one is understanding speech in which sensory input is composed of sound, phonetic, and phonological construct. The input is processed in the listener's mind. The second one, lexical understanding. It means the listeners make associations between the received lexical and those stored in memory. If connected, then semantic and syntactic information on the word will also appear. The third one, sentences comprehension, where the listener interprets the sentence based on the context, linguistics, as well as thinking it with relevant information stored permanent in memory. And the fourth one, final understanding, concern discourse that combines the result of the interpretation of all sentences so that form the construct of discourse as a whole. Here the listener tries to understand the discourse by concluding the speaker's message. So the next material about coherence and comprehension. So the definition of coherence from Mulyana 2005 state that coherence is a pattern of interrelationship between one part with other parts, so that the sentence has unified meaning. So what's the relation between coherence and comprehension? We can conclude that the definition about discourse. Discourse is a series of related sentences which connect one proportion to another, which forms one unit so that a harmonious meaning is formed between the sentences, and it is the most complete and highest language unit on the sentence or clauses with continuous cohesion and coherence. And it delivered orally or writing. So if there's no coherence in a sentence, it will make a meaning of discourse become lack and disconnected or misunderstood the meaning that conveyed by written or orator.
The next is idea units and levels of importance. The total number of correctly recalled idea units is typically used to quantify content correctness in a recall exercise, which represent the degree of learner's reading or listening comprehension skills, according to Carl Chang Riley and Lee. Idea units have been found to be a trustworthy measure of listening comprehension, with reliability coefficient that can occasionally outperform multiple choice assessments, according to Winke and Jung in Sin, Lister, Sabrow, and Yeager. Despite the fact that idea units have been widely employed by L2 researchers and testers as a measure of comprehension, they have been difficult to define and are rarely effectively addressed in the literature, according to Alderson, Winke, and Jung. Idea units were defined as single sentence or main subordinate, adverbial, or relative clauses, and/or infinitival formulation, gerundives, or nominalized verb phrases by according to Carl, Lee, Johnson, and Chang. On the other hand, define concepts unit as spousal units based on typically paced oral reading. An idea unit, according to Alice and Barquizin, is a message segment consisting of a topic and command that is scientifically and/or purposefully separated from adjacent units. They use proportional or semantic content to define an idea unit as a full topic command unit. Units defined in terms of semantic content appear to be the most appropriate because learner reconstruction in a collaborative writing exercise might not match the structural qualities of the original text and might not be clearly definable in terms of spousal units. To analyze our data in depth, we use Alice and Barquiz's notion of idea units. The next part is here is knowledge and context. According to some philosophers, social variable can influence whether evidence one doesn't have weakens one's knowledge. According to Gilbert Herman in Cohen, 1986. Knowledge has a social component, however, social variables influence whether one's knowledge is undermined by the evidence one has. We might start by looking at what it means to have a good grounds to believe something. We'll take it for granted that such a concept is a fundamental component of knowledge. As a first step, we must examine the nature of epistemic reasons in greater depth. A vast number of epistemic reasons have a defensible structure at first glance. This basic framework can be used to show ambiguities in the concept of having good reasons. The concept of obviousness is a physiological construct. Only a certain level of reasoning ability determines whether epistemic links between propositions are clear or not. An intersubjectively evident divisor is a divisor whose significance is plain in comparison to a criterion defined by a social group, typical thinking ability. Intersubjectively opaque refers to a divisor that is not intersubjectively obvious. It's not unavoidable to get to the conclusion that knowledge has a social dimension. The social component to knowledge, intersubjective criteria play a role in determining if a divisor weakens knowledge, and a genius society would undoubtedly make epistemic judgments based on criteria consistent with their superior reasoning abilities. A better way to look at things is to assume that knowledge attributions or denials are indexical or context dependent. The applicable standards are established by the attribution context. In general, the standard in effect in a given setting are decided by the attributor social group usual thinking abilities. Compare the term "know" to a term like "flat". The truth value of flatness attribution varies according on the standard used, according to Lewis and Cohen 1986. For divisors, there are no and evidential standards. Knowledge attribution are based on such standards, and the specific norm that applies to a given attribution is chosen by context. Um, Skepticism is a problem that must be addressed by any theory of knowledge. One of the benefits of our research is that it can be used to motivate a solution to skepticism that has appeared in the philosophical literature in various forms. According to Drescher and Cohen 1986, we'll need a relevant starter to give this approach a context. We came to the conclusion that regardless of any skeptical concerns, the truth value of knowledge attribution is relative to a context-sensitive criterion. It means that there is no danger that we will always be unable to know as a result of our reasoning dividers.
Now, let's talk about figurative language and indirect speech. Figurative is derived from the Latin word figura, which means form or shape. Figura is derived from the Latin word fingere, which means to fashion. Writers primarily employ figurative language to obtain and create image. The presence of figurative language causes literary work to draw attention, create freshness, life, and most importantly, create clarity of imagination, according to Almaroof in 2010. And there are several types in figurative language, but I'm going to give the generally used across in by many people. The first one is simile. Simile is the comparison of two things by the use of some word or phrases such as like, as, then, similar to, or resemble. For example, the boy as brave as a lion in the jungle. The assistant was as busy as a bee when she was preparing the podium for the presidential address. And metaphor. Metaphor is similar to simile, but metaphor is more difficult to define than a smile. And in metaphor, there are no such as like, as, then, and other. For example, the warrior has a herd of stone. Herd of stone here is a metaphor. Love is a battlefield. Battlefield is metaphor, and many others. And the third one is personification. Personification is the a creator, non-human creator, but it consists of human activity. For example, the radio stare at me. Stare here for human activity, but not for the non-human activity. But in personification, it can use for non-human creator. And the fourth is synopsis. Synopsis is the use of part to present the whole is divided into two parts by pradopo, pars prototo, and totem prototo. Pars prototo means part for the whole, and totem prototo means the whole thing stands for its part. For example, bread can be used to refer to food in general or money. Head can refer to counting cattle or people. Higher hands can be used to refer to workers. And onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia is a language that names something or an action by imitating the sound associated with it. They add some reality to the writing. For example, the fireplace heater hissed and cracked. The truck engine roared as it climbed the hill. The alarm clock buzzed at the time I was going to the bathroom. And the last is hyperbola. Hyperbola is simply exaggeration out in the service of truth. For example, I have told you a million times to wash the dishes. Million times here, actually not million times, but it's only for hyperbole. And indirect speech. If there is indirect relation between the structure and function of the utterance, indirect speech acts will occur. Indirect speech act occur when a particular sentence type is used to serve an atypical function. It suggests a different purpose than it actually has. For example, the first example is direct. Please close the door. In imperative sentence type, this is an order. But in indirect, do you think you could close the door? It means order and request, but in different form. Same with the second example. And the last is mental representation. In the first instance, the concept of mental representation is arguably a cognitive science theoretical construct. As such, it is a fundamental concept of the computational theory of mind, according to which cognitive states and processes are formed by the occurrence, transformation, and storage in the mind or brain of information-bearing structure, representation of various kind, according to Pitt. And this is the references that you can read more the discourse field. And that's all for our group. Sorry for mistake that we made. Thank you for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.